Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Morgan's Pop Talks, breaking down the latest in reality TV and pop culture, whether you are listening in your car or on your AirPods, or if you're watching on YouTube, because I have officially launched my own YouTube page at Morgan Page. So happy to have you here today for 13 pages of pop culture news that we have to get into. Big week for black background, white texts. Big week for black background, white text. If you know, you know, and vice versa, because wow, the Instagram announcements that were made this week. We also have to get into the bombshell text messages that were released going back and forth between Taylor Swift and Blake Lively. We thought that saga was settling down a bit. It's not. Of course, we're getting ready for that trial. So now all these unsealed pieces of evidence are coming out, and wow, we got to talk about it. But first, I do want to give you a little housekeeping. As I told you guys last week, I am officially an independent content creator all across the board, meaning it is me, myself, and I running this ship. So I am upgrading my Patreon experience. So you guys probably know, and if you don't know, right now I have 4 different Patreon tiers: Bravo, Bachelor, Survivor, and then a Love You Like Assist tier that includes all of them. But to make your life easier and to give you more content, I am consolidating it into one tier. It's called Lilas Plus. What you will get on the Lilas Plus membership is ad-free episodes of MPT. So if that bothers you, look, I get it. Sign up for the Patreon and you will have an excellent listening experience every single week to the regular free episode of Morgan's Pop Talks. You get exclusive access to all my interviews. So next week, I'm dropping my interview with Carl Radke. If you're on the Patreon, you will hear it before anybody else. That's coming out early next week. And not only that, you are getting one longer bonus episode. And I'm not even really gonna label it MPT because, you know, it's very structured with the Pop 3 and the deep dive and then final thoughts. This bonus episode is going to be as many topics as we want and for as long as we want, you know? So I anticipate that these bonus episodes are going to be a lot longer, and we're going to get into what's hot at the moment. You know, I've been kind of feeling a little bit pigeonholed in that regard, where I'm only talking about Bachelor every single Tuesday, and during the off season, you know, it's like, how many times can you analyze a Instagram comment between Caitlin Bristow and Zach Clark? You know, only a couple times can you do that. So it just opens us up to do deep dives on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, the Traitors, Love is Blind, you know, anything else that is really hot at the moment in pop culture. You can do a 7-day free trial. So if you want to come test it out, we're going to be doing a little light test run next week. I'm going to be posting everything as if it was the new and improved system. But the Lilas Plus tier is up and ready if you want to subscribe. And the link to do so is in the episode description below. So, you know, as I head into 2026, really wanting to expand and give you guys better and more content, I would really appreciate the support if you have it in your heart to do so, okay? If not, welcome to your free episode of MPT. Let's get into it. The Pop 3. I don't even know where to start. Where do you start? When you have the Taylor Swift text, when you have Kyle and Amanda, and then a potential toxic mom group spinoff show. Where do you start? Let's start with Taylor. I have Kyle and Amanda first, but I want to start with Taylor Swift because it's fresh on the mind. So, you guys, I don't even know like what to say. I do know I have a lot to say about it, but when I saw these leaked text messages from Taylor Swift, I don't know about you, but I felt so gaslit. And you guys know, I always try to give Taylor Swift the benefit of the doubt because I can appreciate what she has done, right? She has cultivated such a huge audience. And, you know, I watched the documentary and I watched the Eras tour, and like, I do get it. If you're into that kind of stuff, like, I totally get it. But there's always just something that like holds me back from 10 toes down becoming a Swiftie. You know what I mean? And then we get these newly unsealed court documents. Text exchanges between Taylor Swift and Blake Lively about Justin Baldoni. And here's the first big one that we want to talk about. According to a filing submitted Tuesday in U.S. District Court in Manhattan, Taylor Swift referred to Justin Baldoni using an expletive and a message to Lively, writing, "I think this biatch knows something is coming because he's gotten out his tiny violin." That was sent on December 4th. Blake Lively's legal team is like, yeah, this happened, but it's not about the New York Times interview. What do you mean it's not about the New York Times interview? Yes, it is. I think this knows something is coming because he's gotten out his tiny violin. What else could be coming besides this bombshell article that's going to paint Justin Baldoni in a horrible light? What else is coming? I would love to know the answer to that question because that is crazy to me. Taylor Swift's reps did not respond to comment requests Thursday night. Previously, her spokesperson stated that Swift's only involvement in the film was licensing a song, My Tears Ricochet, and that she was not otherwise connected to the production following an earlier attempt to subpoena her, which that was kind of Marty Supreme, table tennis, back and forth. Sorry, it's on my brain. I went and saw it this weekend, but she was being subpoenaed. She wasn't. She wasn't. Now she's not. But there's these other text messages that completely contradict the claim that Taylor Swift had nothing to do with this drama besides licensing the song. Okay, let's get to that. My notes are a little bit all over the place, but we'll get here. So this is about the penthouse meeting, right? Where we heard Taylor Swift was there. That was Justin Baldoni's side of the story, that Taylor Swift was there and, she was used as star power leverage to, get him to co-sign the idea that Blake Lively's script should be the one that they go with. So, now that I think about it, I can't ever remember a headline that came out and said Taylor Swift was not there, right? But it was, Taylor Swift wants nothing to do with this. She's not involved, whatever. She was at that penthouse meeting. So according to documents, Taylor Swift texted Blake Lively strategic advice about Justin's approach to the film, writing, if Justin was strategic, he would be like, no Taylor Swift in the trailer because that gives you more power over the film. That's your ally, not his. That's your dragon, not his. In her deposition, Blake Lively describes sending Taylor Swift the script while Justin Baldoni was at her apartment, saying, I sent Taylor the script on her way to my apartment because Justin was still there, and I asked her to read them. I told her she didn't have to, and I didn't want her to feel pressured to do that, but I hope that she did. Taylor Swift responded via text, I'll do anything for you. And then also in Blake Lively's testimony, she says during that penthouse meeting, Taylor Swift endorsed Blake's revised version of the script. And then afterward, they had this text exchange in which Blake Lively said to Taylor, you were so epically heroic today. I recapped every moment to Ryan. I kept remembering stuff, you making up about me and lenses and referring to yourself as my doll. This clown falling for all of it, but also resisting it. You are the world's absolute greatest friend ever. So, in my opinion, that's insane, right? I mean, I'm sorry it is. To deny any involvement and then to have these text messages come out, I'm just thinking, like, what were they thinking was going to happen? Were they thinking that just because she didn't get subpoenaed that this would all be kept under wraps? And, right before I came on here, I just read more text messages between Blake Lively and Taylor Swift where they were talking about the distance in their friendship, right? And Blake was like, I don't know if I should be saying this, but I feel like I'm paraphrasing, but I feel like there's some distance between the two of us. And then Taylor Swift says, I know you've been going through a lot and I feel bad, but I kind of feel like I've lost my friend in all of this. Every text message you send to me feels like a corporate email that you're sending to 500 employees. And I just miss my dark humored, funny friend and I want her back. And I no longer want to be talking about all of this stuff. So if Taylor Swift thought that Blake Lively would not release these text messages or tell her side of the story that involves Taylor to shield the friendship, that obviously did not happen. Now, I will say, on the other hand, Lively's attorney, Sigrid McCauley, said that the newly unsealed exhibits contain additional critical statements about Justin Baldoni from others involved with the project, calling the documents damning for him. There were a lot of people's thoughts, emails. Jenny Slate, right? Jenny Slate said, described the shoot as disturbing. She referred to Justin Baldoni as a false ally, a fraud. Later wrote, Justin and his business partner, Jamie Heath, freak me out. There was an email in there from Colleen Hoover stating she was uncomfortable attending the premiere if Baldoni was present, writing things are beyond uncomfortable at this point. And then Isabella Ferrer, testified that Justin Baldoni made an inappropriate hot comment about an intimate scene involving teen actors, which she said felt personal and unprofessional. So, at this point, with everything that we have seen and heard, my brain is scrambled eggs when it comes to Blake Lively, Taylor Swift, and Justin Baldoni. And in my personal opinion, I feel like none of them can be trusted. And that's a possibility. I feel like people so often are like, oh, I'm team Blake, I'm team Justin. I don't know that I can be team anybody. At this particular moment in time, maybe that will change. All right, let's move on to headline number 2. Kyle Cooke and Amanda Batula have announced their separation after 10 years together, 4 years of marriage. So they posted matching Instagram posts saying, after much reflection, we have mutually and amicably decided to part ways as a couple. We share this with a heavy heart and kindly ask for your grace and support while we focus on our personal growth and healing. It feels ironic to ask for privacy during this time since we've always tried to be open and honest about our relationship, but your kindness and respect will go a long way as we try to navigate this next chapter. So we have seen Kyle and Amanda's relationship play out over 10 seasons of Summer House. Kyle was there season 1. Amanda joined the cast when they started dating in season 2. They got engaged on camera in September of 2018. They got married on camera in September of 2021. And while these types of announcements are always sad, not too many Summer House fans were necessarily surprised by this. There were 2 really big clues that Amanda and Kyle were going to end up separated right now, right? We could go back to every season of Summer House and say that there were clues that someday they would be separated. But right now, Exhibit A, the report that they were no longer living together, and then Exhibit B, the Summer House Season 10 trailer really pointed out some cracks in the foundation between the 2 of them. There was a lot of contention in the trailer around their relationship. We see Sierra Miller say to her, and I'm paraphrasing, but if Kyle doesn't start treating you right, you need to leave him. And then we also see this scene where Amanda is sitting down with Lindsay and Sierra, seemingly in the city. And she says Kyle fell asleep at a fan's house until 6 o'clock in the morning. Kyle Cooke did not know that Amanda Batula told the girls on camera that he fell asleep at a fan's house and came home at 6 o'clock in the morning. He found out by watching the season 10 trailer on live television with the rest of us. He said this in an interview. I had no idea she talked about that. That was something that happened last February. So literally almost a year ago. I think a lot of people jumped to conclusions. He said, calling the event an unofficial after party following a Bravo event. And then he says, trailers are trailers. You don't have context. That's why they're so riveting and dramatic. It was by no means just me spending the night with some fan. At the same time, Amanda is saying in interviews that she's going to have to watch back season 10 to really understand what it was that led them to where they are right now. This is what she said. Being on the same page with what our future looks like, what we want in life, where we're going career-wise, things just sort of became different for us. Honestly, I'm going to have to watch it back and figure it out with everyone else because I still don't know. I'm going to be learning a lot watching the show back. What a wild thing to think about, right? It's one thing if your relationship ends, but then to have to psychoanalyze it every single week, every single Tuesday night at 9 p.m., I don't know that I could do it. I stand firm in my prediction that this is how the Kyle and Amanda drama will segue into In the City. I think season 10 of Summer House will be their final season of Summer House, and I also think that it will show the beginning of the end in their relationship, right? So I think it will lead to the first season of In the City where they decide to live separately. And that show will be following them and their new normal or whatever it is that you want to call it. I think the finale of In the City will be the world finding out that they're living separately at BravoCon, because that's when the news dropped. And then the start of season 2 will be them navigating a divorce. I have been lurking on Kyle and Amanda's social media ever since they announced their split, obviously. And I do see a single Amanda vibe coming from her. She's out at hockey games. She's posting her 2016 photos, to which Kyle comments on and says, "I guess I was never in your camera roll," with a laughing emoji. Is it getting to Kyle a little bit? I mean, there's always a sliver of truth in every joke, which we've heard Kyle say similar things on the show before. If my memory serves correctly, he said something similar to Paige. And that just kind of reveals the nature of their relationship, and maybe what led to this split. And I know a lot of people always say Amanda was not happy with Kyle, and for valid reasons, right? But Kyle was also not happy with Amanda for different reasons. We've seen Amanda not be able to get a hold of Kyle, calling 25 times, wondering where he's at, saying, the summer before they got married, that he had to sign a contract saying that if his drinking was led to them calling off the wedding, that he would have to pay the dad back. Amanda even says it in the Summer House trailer. She says, "I wanted Kyle to prioritize us and staying home and not going out as much, and then he finds a career being a DJ." And then we've seen Kyle and Amanda fight on the beach about Kyle feeling lonely in his marriage because the things that he likes to do, go out and be social, Amanda doesn't like to do. So it's at this point, can you really just boil it down to a compatibility issue? I feel like we'll have to wait and watch season 10, but there's a lot going on there. All right, now let's get into a little update with this toxic mom group drama, which we had talked about on the show before. In case you missed it, Ashley Tisdale did an interview with The Cut where she says, "I'm breaking up with my toxic mom group." And it very quickly went viral because Ashley Tisdale was very famously involved with this celebrity mom group that included Hilary Duff, Mandy Moore, Meghan Trainor. Hilary Duff's husband got involved, kind of mocking Ashley Tisdale. Well, now it could be a movie. It could be a TV show coming to a big screen near you. So source told Page Six that there is a S-load of interest from studios and big stars with production companies eager to adapt the story for the big screen. Another insider noted it's relatable to everyone, which is exactly what I told you guys, right? Which is why I believe this story went so viral, because we all can relate. It happened to us when we were in high school, getting left out and whatever. It happened to us. I'm not a mom, so I can't speak to that experience, but I feel like, based on what happened to me in high school, it'd be very easy for that to happen in the setting of, mom groups, because you think you're bonding with each other and you think you're becoming friends when really you just have a shared experience and having a kid. And, there's a lot to talk about with that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is actually your friend. But would you guys want this to be a movie? Who would play Ashley Tisdale? I mean, Ashley Tisdale could play Ashley Tisdale. I don't know that I would be into that, quite honestly. I mean, who am I kidding? I love mess. Speaking of mess, this week's deep dive is insane. The Beckham family drama has absolutely imploded. And I've been following this over the past couple of years. And honestly, I just never really thought that it would get to this moment where Brooklyn Beckham earlier this week posted 6 Instagram stories, very long Instagram stories, black background, white text, detailing all of the things that have led to him not wanting to reconcile with his family. And we've heard whispers and rumors and headlines about the wedding and about the dress and how Nicola and Victoria don't necessarily get along and how Nicola may be controlling and all of these things, right? Well, Brooklyn Beckham is sharing his side of the story. He says specifically that his parents, David Beckham and Victoria Beckham, were deliberately undermining his marriage. Here are some of the claims. He says his parents have continued to go to the press, leaving him with no choice but to speak out for himself and tell the truth about only some of the lies that have been printed. He alleged that the root of the conflict is a family culture that values public promotion and endorsements above all else. Brand Beckham comes first. Okay? Then there's the wedding allegations, and this goes back to 2022 during Brooklyn and Nicola's wedding. The dress. Brooklyn addressed this long-rumored wedding dress drama involving his wife, Nicola, where he claims, my mom canceled making Nicola's dress in the 11th hour, which there is evidence refuting that, which we'll get to in a little bit. And then the dance. Yes, that dance. Brooklyn also revisited the infamous wedding reception moment, writing, my mom hijacked my first dance with my wife, adding that she danced very inappropriately on me in front of everyone. Then we have the birthday snub and some family distance. Brooklyn confirmed that he and Nicola flew to London to celebrate his dad's milestone 50th birthday, but he claims he refused all of our attempts to meet unless it was at his big birthday party. When David finally agreed to see him, it was allegedly under the condition that Nicola was not invited. Then he talks about control, bribery, and the notion that Nicola was not family because she was not blood. Brooklyn accused his parents of trying endlessly to ruin his relationship, allegedly pressuring and attempting to bribe him into signing away the rights to his name before the wedding. He also claimed that family members told him the night before the wedding that Nicola was not blood and not family. And Victoria repeatedly invited women from Brooklyn's past into their lives in ways meant to make Nicola feel uncomfortable. And he says, I'm not being controlled, addressing the rumors that Nicola is the one controlling him. Brooklyn says, I'm not being controlled. I'm standing up for myself for the first time in my life, adding that he had been controlled by his parents for most of his life. He concluded by saying distancing himself has brought peace and relief, and that he and Nicola want peace, privacy, and happiness for us and for our future family. Okay, and then David Beckham responds without really responding, right? It was a very Beckham brand response. So he was on CNBC Squawk Box. I'm not sure what that is, but he didn't directly respond to Brooklyn's accusations, but he warned that social media can be dangerous for both good and bad. And he said his advice to his children is to use it for the right reasons. He also emphasized that kids are allowed to make mistakes, right? Insinuating that Brooklyn doing this expose via Instagram story was a mistake. He says that's how they learn. Sometimes parents have to let that happen. The internet is reacting. There's receipts, proof, timelines, screenshots, everything, right? So let's talk about the dress first. That was a big accusation that Victoria Beckham was slated to make Nicola's wedding dress, and then at the 11th hour decided not to, leaving her scrambling, which for any bride would be life ruining. You know what I mean? Like anybody that's planned a wedding knows that anything like that can just set you off. However, there was an article in Vogue magazine right after the wedding in April 2022, having a different narrative, saying Nicola wore custom Valentino and the dress was a year-long process created through extensive conversations with Valentino's team. So that directly contradicts the last-minute cancellation and her having to find a new dress, unless there were multiple looks, which for someone like Nicola Peltz, who is a daughter of a billionaire, who's getting married into the Beckham family, I feel like, she could have a number of different looks. We don't know. The dance. What the heck actually happened in this dance between Victoria Beckham and Brooklyn Beckham? Everybody wants to see the tapes, right? He says, my mom hijacked my first dance with my wife, adding that she danced very inappropriately on me in front of everyone, which my millennial brain went, did Victoria Beckham grind on Brooklyn Beckham for the first dance? Like, I'm sorry, if someone says inappropriately on me in front of everyone, that's where I'm going. No. Allegedly, it was a nuzzle to the neck, which honestly, if you're looking at it like, I would rather take a nuzzle over a grind, but you know. There's also two competing versions of this story. One, that it wasn't the first dance, In another, that it was supposed to be this special moment for Nicola and Brooklyn specifically. So Page Six reports that it was not the couple's very first dance. It happened later in the night when guests were already dancing during a performance by Mark Anthony. Sources saying there was no hijack. Nicola and Brooklyn had already danced. Nicola had already danced with her father. However, one insider claims it was meant to be the big romantic first dance specifically for Nicola and Brooklyn. She took that moment from Nicola, and that is the God's truth. I feel like it's one of those things where it might not have been the first dance, but maybe they had planned another big dance. And it's almost what Mark Anthony said about Victoria, right? I want to invite the most beautiful woman in the room, not the bride, Victoria Beckham, up to dance with Brooklyn, and then a little nuzzle to the neck set Nicola off. People have been talking about Nicola Peltz's reputation. Several people with past experiences with her are not now speaking out. Celebrity hairstylist Justin Anderson shared his experience, labeling her a monster and the worst of the worst. I'm actually going to roll this clip that Justin posted on his Instagram stories this week.
I put my foot in my mouth when I talked about her years ago. This was so long ago. I was on a podcast and people always ask me about celebrity stuff. And I never talk bad about celebrities because I just don't think it's worth it. If I have a bad experience with a celebrity, I just don't talk about it. I just never talk about them. I never even talk about doing their hair or anything. But in this particular case, she had kind of disappeared. Like, she went away from the scene. She was supposed to be like the new it girl, but like, girls who aren't nice, they kind of disappear. Hollywood doesn't put up with that, right? So she kind of disappeared. So on a podcast, I said her name. And then I didn't think about it for years. And then she got married to him. And then it became like a press thing. They talked about it. They said like celebrity hair colorist Justin Anderson says that this person was a nightmare or whatever. And then she's good with PR. She tried to spin it in her own way and try to say that something happened that did not happen, girl, at all, by the way. And I have proof, so let's not go there. I can say with my full chest, not good energy. Bad news bears. And then, that bad, based on how many wedding planners she went through, I think she's the issue. I mean, Google her. Go into Reddit. Go into the dark corners of Reddit and read a little bit about her. Not a good person. So I perked up right when I saw they were getting married. I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't going to be good for that family. It's not going to be good for that family. Spooky energy. Very spooky energy.
I believe she said he burnt her hair off. And it happened like over a decade ago, right? But that was somebody's experience, and he's being pretty vocal about her being a bad apple. Then there's the Selena Gomez angle, right? There was this brief moment in history where Brooklyn and Nicola were all up in Selena Gomez's business, and vice versa, right? They were like the three best friends that anyone had ever had, the three musketeers. They were like all over each other on Instagram, on social media, going on these vacations together, and now it's crickets, right? So people are like, what happened to that friendship? That doesn't make any sense. Brooklyn and Nicola were not invited to Selena's wedding. And according to The Sun, Selena and Benny grew tired of Nicola's alleged diva behavior. There's also this pattern recognition, because now that all of this is coming up with Nicola and Brooklyn, people are starting to look at Nicola's past relationship with Anwar Hadid, because the narrative is almost the same, right? There's all this family tension. Mom and son are growing distant, and that not only is happening with Victoria and Brooklyn, but it happened when Nicola was in a relationship with Anwar, with Yolanda Hadid. So they're unverified allegations, but reports say that Anwar became distant from Yolanda, Gigi, and Bella, his sisters. And then after the split, there was reportedly no good feeling. Nicola unfollowed the entire Hadid family, and reports now claim that Yolanda may have reached out to Victoria Beckham in support. So that's a pattern, right? That's a pattern that you can't really ignore, in my opinion. This is where I land right now. I don't know David and Victoria Beckham. I don't know Nicola Peltz. I don't know Brooklyn Beckham personally. Do I think that Victoria Beckham and David Beckham are very shrewd business people that care immensely about the Beckham brand? Yes, absolutely. I mean, when you have been in the spotlight for over 20 years, there's no way that you're not. And Beckham is a brand. But, I also look at the siblings' reaction to this because Brooklyn has two brothers, Romeo and Cruz. He also has a sister, Harper. She's only 14. But, Romeo and Cruz also have issues with Brooklyn. We remember there was a headline where they all seemingly unfollowed each other, and Cruz defended his parents very publicly. This happened in December of 2025. He got on his Instagram story saying, "Not true. My mom and dad would never unfollow their son. They woke up blocked, as did I." And I do like this quote from an article I read on page 6. It's another insider that said, "Two things can be true," pointing out the situation has become intolerable because Nicola Peltz can be, quote, crazy and wants her own way, while Victoria can be, quote, dreadful, and Brooklyn was stuck in the middle. Seems about right, in my honest opinion. All right, let's move on to this week's final thoughts. We have to talk about last week's episodes of The Traitors. It's like a bit of a recap, but also we're going to get into the Colton Underwood of it all, the Cassie stuff, because if you're not a Bachelor Nation fan, you might not know all the discourse that is going on surrounding Colton Underwood right now, besides this insane roundtable between him and Michael Rappaport. But, first, last week's episode, we see who got murdered out of the 4 options, which were Eric, Ron, Caroline, and Kristen. So I kind of felt like it was going to be Caroline because they needed to take aim at a housewife because there's 2 housewives as traitors, right? And seemingly people think there's at least one housewife that is a traitor, but if there's 2, there's no way that they're going to murder another housewife in Caroline Stanbury. So obviously that's a very strategic decision, but iconic little moment between Caroline and Lisa Rinna, where Caroline says, "I'll see you around, maybe BravoCon," and Lisa goes, "No, you won't." And I'm like, this season was meant for the reality TV girlies. When you have Lisa Rinna, Candace, and Rob Roush as the traitors, like, the casting department knew what they were doing. Producers knew what they were doing. Monet Exchange was murdered because he said to Candace that he thinks Lisa Rinna was a traitor. Gone too soon. I feel like Monet could have made excellent television, but the traitor suspects coming into this big round table are Michael, Colton, Ish, and Ron. And I feel bad for Ron. Ron is being punished for playing the game in ways that nobody else is, right? They're still holding it over his head that he came for Portia. But, I saw my friend Stephanie Parker from She's All Batch say this. Portia got Portia out. Ron didn't get Portia out. Like, Ron presented information that made him think Portia was a traitor. And it was pretty, persuasive evidence, and people still are like holding it over Ron's head that he was trying to play the game. And then Colton is doing the same thing and people aren't batting an eye, and I'm not understanding it. I don't know if it's because people think that Colton is a traitor and maybe they want to keep him around to get him out later. I don't know. Now we know Kristen is kind of onto him, but I feel bad for Ron. And Candace is honestly the one leading the charge against Ron. And I understand it's because she has to deflect, but I don't like it. Justice for Ron. But then you have Colton, who's like barking orders at all the faithfuls. He comes for Tiffany along with Eric and his magic ears, which I don't like Michael Rappaport, at least in this setting, in the traitor setting. But I did laugh at the magic ears comment. But Eric's like, "I heard a laugh. I think it was Tiffany." It wasn't Tiffany. They get out another faithful. And then next is this all-out war between Colton and Michael. A very controversial statement where Michael says to Colton, "Nobody in this room would be better at holding a secret than you." To which a lot of people insinuated that because Colton had been in the closet for over 25 years, he would be good at lying and deceiving. That's how people took it. Michael Rappaport says, "That's not at all how I meant it. I meant it in the context of the game. I'm sorry if I offended you." He has done press since the episode dropped. He talked to TMZ. He said, "Look, when cameras went down, when we wrapped filming, I reached out to Colton. We had a man-to-man conversation. Everything is good. I like him. I respect him." So I think they're all good. I think Colton, it's easy. I've been seeing both sides of the argument, right? Where people are like, Michael definitely meant it that way. And then there's people that are like, Colton twisted it. I feel like if you're Colton, you only take that one way. I mean, I'm not Colton and I took it that way. You know what I mean? So I feel like even if your intention wasn't deliberately that, the way that it's received also matters. So I do feel like Michael Rappaport owed Colton an apology for that. However, I feel like Colton can't really hang on to this issue with Michael because Colton has his own issues, that he is trying not to talk about, and that is Cassie. He had a very public relationship with Cassie Randolph, who was his final rose pick while he was a bachelor. Things obviously went south, so much so that he stalked her and harassed her. He placed a tracking device under her car, sent her text messages pretending to be a stalker. Court documents show in 2020 that since their breakup, it says Mr. Underwood has been stalking and harassing Miss Randolph. He has sent her unsettling text messages, repeatedly called her, and placed a tracking device on her vehicle to track her whereabouts. During one alleged incident in June, Cassie states that she was visiting her family home in Huntington Beach, California, located approximately 30 minutes from Los Angeles, where she and Colton both lived. In the early morning hours of that day, Cassie's brother allegedly saw Mr. Underwood in the alley outside Miss Randolph's bedroom window at 2 a.m. Okay. It says when he was confronted, Mr. Underwood sent harassing text messages to Miss Randolph, Miss Randolph's best friend, Linda Salas, and Miss Randolph's younger brother. Since then, Mr. Underwood has been seen by Miss Randolph's family, neighbors, and friends of the family hanging around Miss Randolph's family home in Huntington Beach and on the street near the home. And screenshots of alleged text messages sent from Colton to Cassie on June 27th that are included in this filing, he tells her, because you're a selfish person who isn't ready to be loved. I spent 2 years loving you the best I could, and now I'm sitting here feeling like a fool. You've hurt me beyond words. I've always done nothing but be there for you, and you still disrespect me all the time. So that was a text message that he sent under his name. Well, then he created a fake alias and started sending her text messages and him text messages from this fake alias in attempts to trauma bond them, I'm assuming. It says Colton used alias phone numbers to anonymously send harassing text messages at all hours of the day to Miss Randolph and her friends. Mr. Underwood also sent harassing text messages to himself, pretending to also be a victim of the anonymous stalker. He later admitted to being the one sending the messages. So, Colton's doing press for this season of Traitors with Entertainment Weekly, and it says, we were told we're not allowed to ask questions about Cassie Randolph. And I understand it's like a sealed thing. They worked it out amongst themselves. But if you continue to put yourself in a national spotlight, you have to be prepared for that not to go over well with a large majority of the audience, and it's one thing. People make mistakes and they have a past. You guys have heard me say that time and time and time again. But there does come a point where you have to take safety into consideration. And if you did it once, I'm just not necessarily going to trust you again. Do you get what I'm saying? So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if Colton's going to last that much longer on this season of the Traitors. I feel like Kristen is kind of onto him. I'm also wondering if these people don't actually know what went down with Cassie, because I think they know he was the Bachelor. I mean, we know Dorinda didn't know because she didn't know anything, right? She's like, you went on the Bachelor as a heterosexual, which was honestly such a Dorinda conversation, right? But anyways, there you have it. That's what everybody's talking about on the streets this week. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please leave a review, a little 5-star boop boop, a little love you like a sis. Subscribe to the YouTube page. It's Morgan P Talks at Morgan Page. You can watch the full YouTube video there. If you want to come hang out on Patreon for Lilas Plus, get exclusive content and interviews plus ad-free episodes. The link is in the description below. If not, I'll see you next week. And as always, love you like a sis.